Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to cilinixfxcapital, and welcome to this new video, and welcome to the channel if you're new as well. But welcome to this new video in which we'll talk Litecoin. We're going to do a full update. Litecoin is expected to get their ETF very, very soon. That is at least the news that we had over the past 2 days from respected sources, right? So I'm going to assume it's true. I'm not necessarily in my Hedera video this morning. I said, okay, it's going to get an ETF this week. I'm not completely sure about that, but it does seem to be relatively soon. Dare I say, well, early November at the latest, before the 15th, right? In the next couple of weeks. But ultimately, a lot of bullish momentum in the markets. Litecoin also showing bullish momentum. It's very close to getting a major reclaim, so that's also why and what I'm going to talk about mostly in this video. Litecoin is a little bit weaker than Hedera. I would say, if you have to, bet your farm on one of the two, both have a lot of momentum because of the ETF, of course. Solana is also getting a lot of, renewed momentum because of those rumors and because of the expectations, because not only a Hedera and a Litecoin ETF are set to launch, but I believe also a Sol staking ETF by Bitwise. So we're seeing momentum, but Hedera is stronger. One of the key reasons for that, look, I'm relatively bullish about Litecoin. I'm not a Litecoin bear, but the thing is, and I've said this in the summer as well, when we spoke about the ETFs, back then I already told you a Litecoin ETF is coming in 2025. But what I spoke about then is that there is a problem, right? Because Litecoin already has a trust. Grayscale has a trust where institutional investors and major retail investors, whatever you want to call them, could buy Litecoin, and they have a total of $200 million in Litecoin in assets under management. Now, what usually happens, if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, those also had trusts with Grayscale. And what usually happens with those is that all of that asset under management becomes convertible into an ETF, which is a more liquid market and has lower fees. So all of those Litecoins that are in the trust right now will be converted in the Grayscale Litecoin ETF, right? And then very often you see massive outflows. So that's why I think the optimism and the enthusiasm for a Litecoin ETF is a little bit less than what it is for Hedera, which doesn't have that, or Solana, which has that, but to a much lower extent. Solana has $100 million assets under management, but obviously Solana has much more inflows through other ETFs and is more hyped. So in that sense, I think Litecoin is a little bit pressured, but I still do think with the momentum we saw over the course of this morning, I do think that Litecoin will be able to rally up higher here. The only thing, the major obstacle that Litecoin has, is very simple. It's 102.6. That is by far the most important level, right? We spiked this morning up to the 30-day rolling VWAP and the value area low of the price action since July, which is around 107. That matters. But if you look at the higher time frames, look, there's one level that matters the most. That's a previous value area high as well, but it's outside of that a very respected level, and that's between 100 and 102.7. That's what we need to reclaim, right? That's the key level to watch. If we're able to get a strong reclaim above that, then I would say it's most likely we'll be able to rally up higher into 108, into 113. Those would be my first price targets. If we're unable to reclaim into that level, then something must have happened. We must have had some bad news, or the ETF listings must have been nuanced a little bit, so aka they're not coming as soon as we expected. That is a possibility, and that is something to be mindful about. Like, there's no certain trade. But I would say, talking about my prediction about Litecoin right here, I would say it's more likely that we will be able to put in that reclaim either today, maybe tomorrow. All right, so those are my thoughts on Litecoin. That's what I think you need to know. Like I said, be aware of the danger, be aware of the risks that news and updates can have. But ultimately, although Litecoin is weaker than Hedera right now, I would still argue it looks good enough to rally up higher. But those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you on my next videos. For now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.